little litigation and a little bit of everything. And when I graduated, I was able to get a job in one of the major firms in Chicago. And at the time, the money was so good and the training was so excellent and the benefits were great. And I knew that I would be a better lawyer if I took a couple of years from that dream and got good training from a lot of lawyers who went to the top schools in the nation. I mean, Harvard and Stanford and all of these people I was rubbing shoulders with were people that could train me and help me be a better lawyer. And they did. And I paid off my student loans and I was able to move on. Later on, I met a gentleman and we started practicing law together. That ended up in me getting married to him. And for 21 years, we had our own practice. Unfortunately, he died suddenly, and I'm practicing law on my own. I'm my own boss. I have some lawyers who work for me and assistants. And I love practicing in my own place because I get to make my decisions the way I want to make them. You know what? I guess I should say this. I think it's harder to work for somebody else than to work for myself. I found being in a large law firm or even a medium-sized firm to be very difficult because I had certain ways to sit down, but in big law firms, you just don't have those options. And even just being aggressive, some big law firms don't want you to do certain things. It takes a while to get through the tubes and figure out, how we're going to get things on file. Whereas right now, if I want to file something, it's on file within a half an hour because I say so. And so I think I'm doing engagements on the media like your show today. It's all part of things I really love to do, things that I think or in my case, they're getting divorced or losing their home. So you have people that you have to be really compassionate about and really, take that into account when you're trying to help them. Practice family law, which means divorce, child support, property division, going back to court in a divorce that maybe happened years ago, anything having to do with divorce. And and any aspect of that. I work in the collar counties of Chicago and Cook County, rather. I work in Chicago. I work in some of the suburbs. And now that we have Zoom, I can take cases in DuPage and some of the other counties and handle those very, very quickly and expeditiously. So anything for family law, I'm all over it. Also, over the years, Steve, and you and I both do this, I have a list of trusted people who I refer business to. So the other day I had somebody who was in a horrible car accident, and I don't do that kind of work. That's not what I do, but I have a list of people for different types of accidents, different counties, different levels of injury. And I was able to refer that person to a person who I know that lawyer is going to take care of the case. So I not only handle family law, I'm really I feel like I'm on my own little referral service, and there's no cost. To be out there all the time. You have to be willing to help people, even people who aren't going to pay you, because the next time they may pay you, or their aunt may have a case for you, or I get people who call me and say, I heard you on the radio, you helped me, you helped my grandmother get her $5 from the government of the lost funds from the treasurer. And now I have this case and I want to hire you for it. So it's a long game, and it's not something that you can just market and put up a billboard and expect to make $1 million. I think you have to put yourself out there. I think you have to do good things. I think you have to be open. And one of the things that radio allows you to do is for people to get to know you. And I think there are still some people who maybe are a little intimidated by lawyers, and lawyers who use legalese, and lawyers who are kind of obnoxious and controlling and dominant. And I'm just not like that. I can be in court if I have to be. But when it comes to people, I like people. I want to talk to them. I want to ask them questions. I want to get to know them. And I really do like people, even if they're not being particularly nice at the time. I'm trying to get to the point where I can help them. And I consider that I just consider that a real gift to me, that I have enough information, I have enough experience and education to really help someone and change their life. And so I keep looking at it as the big thing. And I don't say no, Steve. Someone asked me to do a midnight set on CNN. I'm there. I'll set my alarm and I'll do it, because I'm not going to say no to anything. You prepare. A lot of people think, okay, just go on. No, I mean, I prepare, I over prepare, I send them talking points, I give them an intro, I tell them what the interesting parts of it are going to be that's going to make us all look intelligent and entertaining. And I try really hard to use that 3 minutes that I'm going to be on television to really shine and to really get people what they want. So 2 things: never say no, and prepare, prepare, prepare. My forte is. I will explain the law, and you can figure out the facts from whatever news outlet you choose to watch. Hopefully they're telling us the truth, and then you make your own decision and have your own opinions. I don't want to shove that at you. And I think that I stay away from that overly opinionated sort of thing. Yeah, I'm very conscious of it. I have an example. The other day, I was on my radio show and I was talking about the issue of classified documents. I was literally just explaining what that means, how documents are classified. I didn't even say Donald Trump's name. And all of a sudden, my text board comes up with, "You love Trump. You love that guy. You hate him. Why do you hate him so much?" I didn't even say his name. I was just explaining the law. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm getting my message out because I want to explain what the law is, and you can have your opinions about it. Go have them. I don't want to alienate anybody from listening and trying to learn and understand, because we lawyers, I'm not saying I know more than anybody. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, though, I've been through 4 years of college, 3 years of law school, 36 years of practice, and I've been around the block. So I know quite a bit. That's so true. I mean, you can take a sports story, you can take a celebrity story, and there's got to be a legal aspect to it, and that's what's so great about being a legal analyst, because you can do things, silly things. You can talk about silly issues, and you can talk about some of the biggest issues that our world faces. So, yeah. The thing with the law is that you never know when you're going to need a lawyer, right? It's not like people are, but I tell people, write down my name, because you don't know. Maybe you're going to have a bankruptcy. Maybe you need a real estate lawyer. Maybe you have a nephew who got arrested for something. So write it down, put it in your phone. And if you ever need me, call me, email me, text me, whatever you need to do. Amendment when you look at this, because a lot of people think First Amendment means I can say anything anywhere, right? But it doesn't mean that. So in my workplace, for instance, I can have a rule that people don't use certain slurs, or I can have certain that no one discusses politics. And I can tell my people who work for me, if you go on Facebook and you start saying things that are really maybe nasty or racist or whatever, I am going to fire you, and I can. So do you have a right to talk? Yes, but there are consequences. First Amendment only applies to government regulated speech. So the law says Congress shall make no law, Congress or the states shall make no law abridging freedom of speech. So when Facebook or Twitter takes people off, that might seem like it's a First Amendment issue, but it isn't, because they're private companies. They can decide that they don't want to be a billboard for hate speech, or they don't want to be a billboard for certain kinds of speech. And does that anger people that certain individuals have been removed from social media? It does, and it should. But there is no legal right, in my view, to say whatever I want on social media when social media is a private company. Now, if it were to be regulated by the government, that's a whole different thing. A lot of press because it's a little complicated, but basically Texas passed a law that said to social media, large social media outlets, that they were prohibited from banning people from talking based upon viewpoint. Now, there's a little more whistles and bells on that, but of course, the social media said, no, we can ban whatever we want because we have our own rules, because we're private. You can't tell us what to do. That's a First Amendment problem for us, social media. And the court did not agree with social media and upheld the law. So now Texas is able to control and is able to prohibit the censorship or the monitoring of social media for certain individuals. Now, interestingly, Florida had the exact same law that was passed, but their appellate court struck it down. So now we have two states with the same laws, one finding it constitutional, one finding it not constitutional. So we all know where that's going. Very important. I'm all in favor of First Amendment, but once the government starts to regulate, it's one thing to have Steve Zuckerberg, regulate. Maybe you don't like him, and you don't want him regulating your speech, but the government, we have to be very careful, because once the government starts to make rules about who gets to talk and who gets to say what, with our political world that we have, I don't know. That's a little frightening to me. News, look at the stats. I mean, the vast majority of people get their news from social media. The vast majority of people get their information from looking at Facebook and Twitter and all of these social media outlets. So, it's different than it used to be, and it's not just like a newspaper. It's so more pervasive, and it quickly disseminates information, and there's a lot of misinformation, as you know. So it's He's not just my former client, he's my formerly alive client. In 1994, I represented John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer, in the final set of his death row appeals, along with three other great lawyers. I was on the team to try to stop the execution from happening, not get him out of jail, not let him walk, but in the final appeals phase of the 17 years or so he was in prison, we were attempting to stop the execution. And spoiler alert, we were unsuccessful, and he was executed May 10th, 1994. And, I talk about this all the time, Steve. People want to know about it. They say, how can you? How could you? And then they say, but tell me, what was he really like? And so for all these years, I have resisted writing a book about this. I have been on probably 40 documentaries. I have been approached to do a fictionalized version of my relationship with him by one of the big film houses. I resisted that just because I just didn't trust that was going to be a good career move. But I finally decided that I do have a story to tell. And it was a story of a young lawyer. I was very young at the time. I was just 30. And I was asked, by just a fluke to represent Gacy. And I took it on along with these other lawyers. And it was just a wild situation. Having the media attention, having the issues that we had before us, having the most reviled man, one of the most reviled men in the world as your client was a bizarre thing to go through. And so I wrote the book, and it's now with an agent in New York who's very optimistic that we'll get it published soon. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm actually very proud of myself, if I can say that, because it's really a hard thing to do. Writing a memoir about something that happened that long ago, and that, while I'm doing my practice and working 10 hours a day and doing all the other stuff, I had to sit down at night and just put my other creative cap on and really spill my heart about what it was like to do this. And it wasn't easy, but I've never really taken the easy way out of things. So I'm really looking. Death threats, and we had a bomb threat. We had to empty out one of the towers in one of the bank buildings in Chicago one day. And so when you have somebody who's so hated, you have to walk the line, because I said all along, we're not trying to get him out. I obviously don't condone what he did. I have all the sympathy in the world for these victims and their families who are forever they're still tormented. I know these people. I know of these people. It doesn't end when a loved one is killed in that horrible way. So I had to really walk the line to tell people, this is what I'm doing, because he needs a lawyer. He's entitled to a lawyer. I don't believe in the death penalty. I big one. I mean, you're always going to have the Jussie Smollett, and you're going to have the R. Kelly stories. You're going to have the big crime stories, which are always sexy and fun to cover, especially if there's a Chicago connection. But I think these big issues about how we're going to regulate speech are really front and center here and really important. Again, our news stations should be a little bit more conscientious. And it's not about entertainment. It's not about stoking politics. You know, it's global warming is a political issue, making hurricanes a political issue. I mean, this is not what we should be doing. We should be giving people the facts, and we should have facts. There are facts. There are things that are